All right, guys, we're back. It's Thursday night. We're here at the Craft Emporium, top of Ohio Radon in the garage, coming off a 2-week hiatus. Thanks to Bill Tipple, who handled the duties last week with our guest Ann Vogel. I always want to thank top of Ohio Radon, Paul Newland. Radon's the second leading cause of lung cancer. Give Paul a call, 937-935-2806, and Paul, come out. Get your radon checked. Find out if you have what's common in Logan County, which is high radon levels. If it does, he'll take care of that. If not, he will give you the peace of mind to know that you're in good shape. Tonight, joined with my longtime associate, Jake Vitt, 20-year athletic director at West Liberty-Salem. Jake, have you had your radon checked?
I have.
Oh, top of Ohio?
Yep.
Oh, you did have Paul Newland come out.
I did, and it's not great.
Can we get a testimonial?
The service was fabulous.
Nice.
What else do you need from other than
Did
service?
he take care of it?
Well, that's all on me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I have to have the system put in.
Well, it sounds like you need to get to it.
I do.
You don't need to be sucking in that
it's
radon.
That silent, deadly gas.
You're getting too old to be sucking in that radon.
Yeah.
So, well, good. That's the first that we've actually had one of Paul Newland's clients here on air. He's a loyal listener. He'll be listening on YouTube probably tomorrow, and he'll be glad to hear that.
He should probably just plan on putting the system in.
Paul, if you're listening, head to Jake's tomorrow. You got work to do. So, I texted you a little bit ago because I couldn't remember what year you started at West Liberty-Salem. You became the athletic director in 2001.
Yep.
You were 22 years old.
Well,
you had to have been.
You did
or 23, maybe. Well,
yeah.
I was 21.
I was very young.
You're a year ahead of me. You're a 1997 West Liberty-Salem grad. I'm a 98. I'm a little young for my grade. I don't know if you're a little old for your grade, but I'm guessing you're 46 now.
Yep.
You just turned 46.
Just turned 46.
So you were no more than 23 years old. You had come back from college, from Malone.
Yep.
You were running your mowing business. Back then, it was kind of more of a mowing business.
It was. Yeah.
Was I?
You were a proud employee.
Was I your first employee? One thing I was thinking.
Not.
Who was
No.
your first employee?
My first employee, man,
I was employed by you in probably 1999. So you were just back home, maybe 2000. You were barely home. Mike Loudon was a sometime part-time employee.
Mike was one of the first as well.
Yeah, I think I was before Mike. But early on, so you're driving bus, right?
Yeah.
You started driving bus pretty quickly.
18 years old. Can you believe that? Would you put your kid on a bus with an 18-year-old? Well, it's not legal anymore.
You were always a good driver.
Well, I
even
thought
as a
so.
kid.
Yeah.
You had that, what was that truck? You had that little, it was an S10. Yeah, you drove that all over town. You take over for Louise Dunham. No.
Louise and Mike Freese retired, and there was a fella that came in. They hired him. His name was Gene Gooding.
Okay, I vaguely remember that. That was a short period of time?
Very short. They hired him as the middle school principal and athletic director. They set him up for failure, basically. It was an impossible job.
You talk about a change there. So he's the middle school principal and athletic director, which there's no chance a school, even a tiny school like a Ridgemont, wouldn't do that nowadays.
No.
So who approaches you? Because I don't remember this. Like, somebody must have approached you and said, hey, do you want this job?
Well, it actually happened because they wanted to hire events managers. So basically,
save money.
Yeah. Well, they went from having two co-athletic directors to one who was also principal, and they wanted to have guys that would come in and help cover events for them. I was there. I was subbing in the building, and I was driving. I had a full-time bus route. It kind of intrigued me, so I became one of his events managers.
Now, certainly that's a little archaic way to do athletic director. Now, I know that was a long time ago, but they were probably a little bit behind. And at some point, obviously, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but you become more of a full-time, legit athletic director at some point in your career, right? Where you're not, I know you're always driving bus and doing the lawn, but it's an administrative job. I don't know if it's administrative pay.
But that's how you asked how it got started. I mean, I'm trying to answer your questions here, Rick.
Okay. Hey.
You asked how somebody approached me, so they put that posting out, and I saw that, and I applied, and they couldn't turn me down, and so I became the events manager. I was the events manager for 1 year.
So you enter in 2001, which is the first year West Liberty-Salem is joining the Ohio Heritage Conference. I don't know if you remember that. That was year one. And so that's an 8-team league at that time. The founding members are Berg, West Lib, Triad, Catholic Central, Southeastern, Cedarville, Greenview, and I might have missed one in there.
Did you say Northeastern?
Northeastern. That would be number 8. So a big change from the WCOC that you grew up in, that I grew up in. Moving south, West Liberty becomes the northern kind of school, and you start adding in these Springfield schools that are a little bit foreign. What were your thoughts? I mean, I know you're young and just getting started, but your initial thoughts to that move, did you think it was a good thing? At the time, obviously looking back, it's been a great thing, but
yeah. I think at the time it was just there was not many other options. So, and it was exciting. I mean, any time you have somewhat of a change and more competition, different competition, I remember thinking that the numbers, like at the schools up north that we were playing with, like Riverside, Waynesfield, Ridgemont, they were declining. So we were in somewhat going to some bigger schools, taking on bigger competition.
And you come at a time where West Liberty-Salem, to me, and I lived through it with you, was pretty average in sports. The track program and cross-country programs were always strong. The wrestling team had certainly had moments there for a while where they were really strong. But the big sports, football, basketball, baseball, softball, I would just say very average. Decent, but nothing special. Have a good year here and there, which is pretty typical. But I don't know if this was because of you or but you start and you almost immediately see the athletic program light a flame, like quickly. Football team.
It's definitely not because of me.
Well, I know. I'm sure you had a part of it, but you come in at a time, and I may have my numbers wrong, but you've got a pretty good stable of young coaches. So the football coach is Toby Smith, who's in his second, maybe third year. The basketball coach is a young Aaron Holler in his second, third, fourth year. The girls basketball coach is Dennis McIntosh, who's certainly not young at that point, but he's been the coach for 6 or 7 years and still is. Just won his 500th game. Toby Smith is coaching baseball, so he's already got that going pretty good by the time you get there. Softball, I assume, is Lene Detweiler in 2001? And she's about to light a real flame with them, and they're about to get really good and stay really good. Your track programs you come into have stability. You got Larry Steiner, who'd been the coach for a long time, and you got Ann Vogel, who's probably about a decade in. They're also the cross-country coaches. Your wrestling coach is Brady Hyatt, who won't stick around a whole lot longer, but was certainly plenty qualified to be handling the program. I mean, you're pretty fortunate to walk into stability.
If you ask me, head coaches control the functionality of the athletic department, and the turnover is what kills an athletic department. And unfortunately for now, it happens a lot.
Yeah, and the reality for that, and maybe you'd have your own opinion, is it doesn't pay very well. People ask me, Bill Tipp will ask me that all the time. He'll say, why do coaches not stick around? I said, well, first of all, they don't make very much money. So that's a sacrifice to your family generally, and there's a lot of negatives. There's a lot of work, and life gets in the way, and people give it up. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But so those early days, do you find, and you're at your alma mater, which is harder. You're familiar, but at the same time, everyone views you as someone that just graduated 3 or 4 years ago. Do you remember anything from those early days, like that you think back and think, holy cow, I can't believe, I did this, or I can't believe this happened and that this would never happen as you got older?
I mean, I can remember sitting in my interview, and Dennis McIntosh was there, and Dennis was a veteran coach even at that time, and I'm thinking, I think to myself many times, and I did even when I was still AD. What was he thinking? This kid's coming in, wants to take over, and whatever. Dennis is probably 20, 30 years older than me, and had lots of coaching experience.
He graduated with his daughter.
I graduated with his daughter, yeah. And I'm essentially going to be his boss. That I remember thinking that many times over my career of how I walked in a lot younger than a lot of these head coaches, and bam, became their boss.
Did you? And obviously, we're not going to air any dirty laundry unless you really want to, and it'd be good for ratings. But did you ever have incidents in those first few years where you felt like someone just wouldn't, accept your authority to a?
Yeah. I mean, Toby and I
he won't care what you say.
No, he won't care one bit. We struggled, but we were great friends, and and I'm not putting any blame on him. I looking back, I know I would say comments to him or demand things out of him, and looking back now, as you mature over the years and you look back on it and think, I handled that. It was never totally his fault. Many times I handled things wrong or addressed it wrong. But yeah, there's a lot of times where
how much happened. Of your job did you think was on the field? Like, obviously you have the part of athletic director that's organizational. It's planning, it's calendars, it's schedules. And how much did you feel like you had the ability to give input into what was happening on the field? Because I could imagine that's where
during the play.
Well, not necessarily that, but I wondered, did you ever mention something to Coach Smith, like your opinions on things that would be more football based?
Never.
As opposed to,
no.
That probably wouldn't have went over very well.
No. I can tell you right now, I was not blessed with a lot of athletic ability. I was not a great athlete. I don't even would consider myself an athlete. I played sports. I tried to play sports, but I wasn't any good.
You were a basketball player, and you were on the track team.
And I was on the track team. Let's see. I went home from Pee Wee football. I snuck out of practice early because I didn't want to get my head measured for the helmet because I knew I wasn't going to do it.
No, it wouldn't fit.
I was not an athlete, nor did I have. I knew I didn't have any knowledge to be telling these coaches what they should or shouldn't be doing. I'll line up their games. I'll paint their fields. I'll set everything up for them, but that's their business.
So as you move through those first years and West Liberty starts getting good, I think we agree that coaching is a big part of it. Is there anything else besides the stability and talented young coaches that you could say, looking back to your own career, that changed, that made West Liberty-Salem go from pretty average to pretty dominant, at least at their level in their area?
I mean, it's a huge, big picture. You have to have, obviously, you have to have administration that supports what you're trying to do. You have to have parents that want to get involved and help put on the show. I mean,
your superintendent in those days, John Rutger?
That was right? The first one. Yep.
And he lasts until probably 2006, 2007, somewhere in there.
I would say about in there.
And then you get Steve Thompson.
And then Steve Thompson came along.
You thought pretty highly of him, I assume.
I did, yeah.
And he sticks around for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And then who's after Steve Thompson? Does that go right to his
Larry? No, Larry Horner was in there.
Okay, and I'm kind of blind to him because I'm at Bell Fountain by then, and he sticks around for a few years.
Yep.
And then you get his song?
No, then we had Linda Sparks.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know. Well, yeah,
you can't go wrong with her.
I'm sorry, yeah, long time West Liberty-Salem.
She would meet the kids out on the field in their post-game speeches.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and I didn't even think we'd talk about that, but the superintendent's role in a athletic program, you definitely see a difference from school to school and how that individual handles it. And you're saying that all of your superintendents, for the most part at least, were hands-on and were involved. I know John Rutger was. I know Steve Thompson was, and I know Linda Sparks was, because those are the three that I'm familiar with. And I think, I have strong feelings about that when a superintendent is not active in the school and living and dying with you, that there's a disconnect that starts to trickle down. And now that can go both ways though too, because then you can also, the problem with being involved is sometimes you can meddle, you can get involved in things that you probably shouldn't. But to me, that's a better problem to have than just apathy and removed and not able to really add anything meaningful because they're not engaged.
Their job's to run the district, and do they have to be at athletic events to run the district? Probably not. But it's smart for them to be there, and it's smart for them to be involved and have FaceTime and show their face, be with the kids, be with the coaches. It's just good. And but would they have to be to make our district run functionally? No, but that's definitely a big part. And those guys, those names you mentioned, they all were.
And it trickles down to their administrators, because then if principals see that the super's there all the time, they're more apt to be there. And sometimes they're required, but not all schools and not at every event. But you start getting those people, and this is one thing that West Liberty-Salem probably has an advantage over others. They're fairly homogenous. The people that work there send their kids there. There's probably not a whole lot of people working there that are sending their kids elsewhere. Is that fair to say? Yeah. And I think at other schools you get a run of staff members that have kids in other districts, and and not that it's going to happen, but if it happens too much, you start to see the morale. It's not the same.
You can't put your kids in the district you work in.
Right.
Where's your loyalty?
Now, sometimes it is people that, in fairness, have like a husband or a wife that works in another district.
Yeah.
So there are definitely reasons. When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of tolerance for that. But as I get older, I realize that life happens. But you want the majority of your employees in your district. So you start to have some success pretty quick. What are some of those memorable 2000s things that you think back and, you're a young guy that you think, man, that was so much fun, and that was, a big part of your time at West Liberty?
I mean, West Liberty-Salem had never hosted a playoff football game. And so the first playoff football game that we hosted, I mean, the world the world shut down around West Liberty. It was huge, and it was a ton of work, but it was a lot of fun. And just to see that football team, their emotions and their excitement leading up to that game, and also to see, I'm big on community. I love the community. I love seeing the community get involved, and to see the support behind them and their excitement. That's definitely one of my highlights.
So that's 2004. Toby Smith's the head coach. Lee Yoder is the quarterback. We've talked about him on our site when we did our all-time team. I know you're a big fan of Garage Sports. You've been, you don't like a lot, but every now and then you throw a little like. If we earn it, you'll throw a like our way. But West Liberty hosts Bishop Fenwick. Is that correct?
Yes.
Win their first home playoff game. I was there. I was finishing up my college career at Ohio State, so I was still a big fan. I was assuming that I was going to someday teach and coach at West Lib, and life happened, and that kind of changed. But go on to play East Clinton at Springfield High and lose a pretty competitive game. But that is definitely a team that, in my mind, stands out because it hadn't been done before. There'd been some good teams, but they did not get into the playoffs, the mid-'70s that we all heard about growing up. But that was really the last good run of football. West Liberty was pretty mediocre, if not below average, for the better part of 20 years, maybe even more like 30 years almost. So, big time there. And that's really a run of athletes that just, to me, were special. Lee Yoder, and then in basketball you have Eric Earnhardt, who ends up transferring to Urbana. You have Joe Kramer, who plays football and basketball. He also transfers. So you get a little taste of the transfer. Early on, actually, you get a big taste. Now that I say it, you get Earnhardt and Kramer who transfer. You get Jason Marshall, Aaron Hart, Kobe Boyd, and David Thompson who transfer out for wrestling, who were all state. I believe all four of them won a state title.
Tyler Ledford was in there too with basketball.
Well, and Tyler Ledford's in 05, 06, 07 in there.
Mm-hmm.
We did a thing on he and Brad Coder. They were pretty transformational athletes. They did not transfer. They stuck around, and they were three-sport guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing about those two dudes. They were stars. And, well, I'm sorry, Ledford didn't play. Ledford was two-sport. He didn't play football.
Right.
But Coder was a three-sport star. Awesome football, awesome basketball, awesome baseball, good kids. Families were involved. At the same time, the softball team, they get really good.
Starting to pick up.
They end up going, I feel like, to the state Final Four, right? Mm-hmm. When does that happen?
Well, I can't remember dates.
Like mid-2000s?
Yeah, it was mid-2000. Yeah. Yes.
And I'm not as familiar with that, like who the stars were of softball, like who were the special players. Do you remember?
Yeah, so Lene came in and took over the program, and of course she had her twin daughters coming up, and they were good. So that sparked it. Gosh, I can't remember too many more names. Abby Ledford was a little bit younger. Than the twins, but the run that they went on, that was another memorable event. Taking those guys up to Akron to the stadium up there for the state finals.
Did they do that once or twice? I feel like maybe
we went up there twice.
Yeah, and never won in the Final Four.
No,
so didn't make the final game ever. The basketball team, the boys team, gets pretty good pretty quick. I feel like they won the league for the first time in, well, I guess it took till 05, 06, but that Ledford team, I'm sure you remember playing North College Hill.
Yes.
That's 2005, I want to say. And that's a Tyler Ledford team. No, I think Lee Yoder's on that team, so that's the 04, 05 season.
You can ask me, I can't tell you about stats or anything in that game. I can just tell, this is just the nature of how I am, but I couldn't tell you the final score of that game, but I can tell you that we didn't leave UD Arena until 10:45 that night on a school night. We were the last game. We were the late game, and see, that means nothing, but that's just kind of stuff I remember. But I remember leaving there thinking, all these kids have to get up for school the next morning. And
OJ Mayo.
Mayo.
He is a future NBA player. Plays quite a few years in the league. A guy named Bill Walker.
Yep. And his dad was the coach.
Okay. Bill Walker went to Kansas State, I want to say. I don't know if he did much in the NBA, but that was a pretty big mismatch. But I feel like I remember it was competitive.
It was, especially in the first half. We
played good defense.
We played well.
And the baseball team goes on quite a few runs there. Earnhardt was the early dude. He was really good. Probably, without me digging into it, maybe talent-wise, the best baseball player West Liberty's ever had. Certainly Tyler Ledford is there, and Brad Coder.
Yeah.
But Earnhardt, I feel like Coach Smith goes to the regional final a few times.
Yeah.
I think a handful of times over the years. He was definitely state coach of the year there one year. So, success everywhere. Then the track and cross country, I don't want to overlook that, but Bill Tipple and Ann Vogel hit that pretty hard last week. They've been dominant for, really about 40 years now. So as you move through your career, at some point, do you become more of an administrator? Because I know it sounded like early on they were kind of trying to piecemeal it together. Do you become an actual administrator at some point?
Oh, you mean at the school level?
At the school, yeah.
Well, I thought I was an administrator, but
I guess I'm talking from.
I'm not sure they would ever term me as administrator. I was always in on the administrative meetings, and I tried to fill that role. But on paper, I don't think I was.
Well,
ever
at
an
Bell Fountain High
administrator.
School, and the reason I say this is like the athletic director is part of the administrative team in the fact that you're getting a higher salary. You're getting your retirement paid for by the school, which that's the big thing when you
Yeah.
apply to be an AD or any of the administrative jobs. You're paying 14% of your to retirement. They pick it up. So that's West Liberty's not handling it that way at any point in your career. Not that that really matters, but it interests me how each school handles the AD position.
Well, let me tell you, when I was first hired, I had 2 years of education at Malone under my belt in education. I was going to be a gym teacher, but then I decided that's not what I wanted to do, and I was going to go home and run my lawn business. So when Steve Thompson hired me as the athletic director, he said, "We'll hire you, but you have to finish your degree." That's fair. And when you finish, we'll up your salary. So that was a drive for me to finish my degree. So I went to Urbana University for 6 years straight, nonstop, summer classes, clear through, and finished my teaching degree.
So you have a teaching degree.
I do have a teaching degree.
Did you take the test and all that stuff?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Pass the praxis.
Now you're not keeping them up now, are you?
No.
Yeah, because they cost.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I actually never had a classroom of my own. I student taught. I did all that stuff.
You student taught where the AD.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Half of the school day I would go down and teach in first grade, and then the second half I did my AD duties, and I would have to track my time to prove that I was putting the time in.
Did you drive school bus this whole time?
Yes.
There was never a time where you weren't a bus driver.
Yeah. No, when I became AD, I stepped down as the bus
okay.
driver, yeah.
Now you kept your stuff up, though.
I kept my certification up. When they were in a dire need, I would go out and drive a route.
Did you ever drive to games?
No.
No. So, in this whole time you're doing your lawn business, I mean, that never changes.
That never changes.
It never. Now, did you? Because I don't really remember. Did it take a back seat for a while? Did you kind of?
I would say it took a back seat, yeah, and it was much smaller than it is now. So I just relied on my employees.
You were more mowing back then.
Yeah.
You weren't doing all the big commercial jobs and stuff.
No.
So as you go through, and you get established, and West Liberty, pretty much is. They're kind of the same way. They get established, and the league starts to expand. I think 2006. I mean, it's a ways down the road, but they add Fairbanks and Madison Plains in 2016.
Drama. That was.
Well, I'd like to hear about that. So, how does that? What's the first thing you hear about that? Like, it's going to happen.
At the time, they were talking about Kenton Ridge and Northeastern combining.
Yes,
that was years
still gets
ago.
talked about.
Yeah, that was years ago, and so everybody in the AD meetings starts to panic. What are we going to do if they do combine? And then they go to the big school league or the CBC or
right.
So we start thinking we've got to cover our backs. We have to have a plan in place, and looking back, that never happened. So did we jump the gun and would we ever have even had to do it? Who knows? But it was a ton of work.
Did the league open it up for applicants?
Yeah.
And do you remember how many schools applied?
I bet you there was 8 or 10 that applied.
Was there any that just you thought, what the heck? Why the heck is this school applying to be in the OHC? I always think it's interesting, and we're kind of going through this right now. Like about every 6-8 years there's upheaval.
Yeah.
And I sometimes question the people in charge. The problem is it's more than one school. So you've got, how many ever schools that might be affected.
It's a domino effect. As soon as somebody says they're leaving or thinking about leaving, then every league starts brainstorming or, it's just, there's so many fingers that play in the game, and everybody's it's It's bad, really.
And it only, to me, and I haven't been in the inner circle like you have, but I'm always paying attention. It only takes one person that has some harebrained ideas.
Only one school.
And then that can snowball into other places.
Yep.
So would you have said you wanted Fairbanks and Madison Plains? Was that like your choice?
Well, I didn't want Madison Plains. I definitely wanted Fairbanks because I knew they were a good, thriving school. I knew they were growing.
Was there any talk of them helping break up the WCOC, though?
I knew that they were with us in the WCOC, and I liked that.
And help break it up.
Yeah.
They were absolutely. Now, that's a new administration.
We didn't talk about that.
Now, in fairness to them, those people are probably gone.
Right.
It's 18 years later.
And the same people that were on the receiving end of that are all gone.
Exactly. So,
to be honest with you, looking back, that was never even talked about.
Who, if you don't mind saying it, I don't think anybody cares, and they're not listening. Who would you have chosen over Madison Plains? Do you remember a school that you liked?
I mean, I've always liked Riverside.
Yeah, me too.
But we're close to them.
Riverside is tough for like Greenview.
Yeah,
and even
sell.
Cedarville. It's tough, and I think there's a chance that Riverside ends up in the OHC. I think with some of this changes, they're rumored. The TRC, the Three Rivers. I don't know if you follow it much anymore. They just lost Bethel to the CBC, and then the OHC lost Greenon, which we've talked on this podcast several times. I don't know what Greenon is
That's
thinking.
crazy.
They constantly can't figure out what they want. The reality is they're not any good at sports. They're good at a couple smaller sports. They don't know what they want. They thought if they went to the OHC they'd win more, which probably didn't really happen. And the thing that they found with the OHC is the OHC doesn't have as many of the smaller sports. You know, if you have swimming and stuff, that's not really a thing. Where in CBC, that's the things they're better at, so they might as well just stay there because they're going to get their butts kicked in basketball and football anyway. So, Riverside would have been nice, but probably hard to get the votes on that. And then quickly, though, the next year, you add Greenon and West Jeff. Was that like all part of the same conversation?
Yeah.
It just, the way it worked out, they had to come a year later?
Football plays a big role in that because of contracts with schools.
How did you feel about West Jeff? Because that, to me, at the time, was a huge score.
It is. I remember Mechanicsburg really rallying pretty hard for West Jeff. Naturally, they would. And we had played West Jeff in football playoffs.
A couple times, maybe.
Yeah. As an AD, you look at, obviously, you're thinking about the financial side of things, too, because that runs your whole program. And it's no secret, football gate receipts run the whole program. And I knew that West Jeff traveled well. They brought a lot of fans, so I wasn't against it.
What about Greenon? Was there just kind of...
I feel like Greenon was just kind of a part of the package.
They're a Springfield school-ish. I mean, they're pretty close to that. That's kind of helpful. You know, how much do you consider geography? Like, would you be willing to add a school that's an hour and 15 minutes away?
I'd be against it unless it's a last resort because you're putting your families in a big inconvenience because of travel time. You don't get on the receiving end. You don't get the fans to come and support. Basically, you're going to get maybe one parent, and that's it. Especially during the week.
Well, that's what I always say to people when sometimes people have these pie in the sky schools that they want to see the CBC chase, and I say, you can't think about football. Football kind of takes care of itself. You can travel an hour and a half for a football game, no big deal. It's Friday night.
Yeah.
But a Tuesday night middle school volleyball game,
right,
or a basketball game that's a double header, and I hate long travel for sports. I have said many times when I was in charge of any scheduling that we'll stay as close as we can. Now, if we get really, really good, we generally have to schedule further away, but we can go get our butt kicked somewhere close if that's an option.
And we can't forget about our bus drivers.
Yeah, you never do.
Those bus drivers have to get home and get to bed because they got to be back rolling by 5:30, 6 o'clock the next morning.
You have always been a staunch advocate for those bus drivers, and you guys have always had a special. There's something about bus drivers. They really it's a clique that is different.
You don't want to mess with them. I'll tell you that.
No, and I remember fondly my bus driver Dolores Yoakum. Andy Smith and I gave her a lot of grief over the years. So was there ever any times, and maybe you don't want to share, but with the league where anything crazy happened? Like, was there ever a thing that never came to fruition that you think, oh gosh, I can't believe that was even talked about? Was West Liberty ever considering leaving the OHC?
I remember talking to our administration about when we were expanding and when we were bringing teams in, should we go to the CBC? Because we participate we compete against a ton of CBC schools.
Ben Logan, the Lake, Graham,
yeah,
Urbana some,
and going to looking at the OHC and then comparing it to the CBC, and you talk about travel time and location. Here we are. I remember thinking we're almost closer to just be with CBC schools.
Well, the thing that if I was in charge, and I'm glad this doesn't happen, because I always worry about Bellefontaine and where Bellefontaine fits in, because we're unique in the fact that we're a little bigger, and when we're good, and we're not always great at everything. No, I'm not going to pretend we are, but when we're good, we can be really good. Like our football team. The reality is, Tavian St. Clair's a once-in-a-lifetime person for us, but we've had at Bellefontaine probably 10 or 15, not Tavian St. Clair's, but once-in-a-lifetime type players. Like, what I'm sitting in here right now. We've had Division I football players. Don McDonald, who's sitting here listening, he played Division I football. That doesn't happen at really those size schools. Even Benjamin Logan and the Lake don't get many of those. Yeah. So there's a lot of years where West Liberty and Bellefontaine would be a good football game, but when it's not, it can get a little bit ugly.
And that was always in the back of my head, because between Toby Smith and Dan McGill, I would always talk to them about my ideas, and they were always against it, because they would say 3 out of the 5 years we could compete with. It's the crossover games, with Urbana or Bellefontaine. But those years we can't.
Urbana has fallen off enough in sports that I think West Liberty in a league with Urbana would be fine. I think that
at that point they would have been.
Right. Well, and there's been some years though where Urbana would be a handful. Now, if I was in charge of West Liberty, where my head would be is, could I get a little bit of the old WCOC back together? I would target Ben Logan. I would target Indian Lake. I would target Graham, which is not a CBC or not an OHC. I'm sorry, not a WCOC school. Could I get a league of big and small? And we actually did a whole thing on a podcast where West Liberty could get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
They could get the little bit bigger, even Shawnee maybe, definitely KR. Stay away from the Bellefontaine, the London, the Alder, and the Tecumseh. Now, I don't know if you know this, West Liberty is playing Jonathan Alder in football.
Oh, I know.
This fall, which is that's a pretty bold schedule. I think that Alder's a little down from what they were a few years ago, but that's an interesting game, and I'm assuming Dan scheduled that. Maybe he timed it so that he wasn't going to have to coach in it.
Well,
it's like the time Toby scheduled Valley View. I think he scheduled it and he never had to coach in it.
We were in a position. Now that happened after my time with a succeeding AD, but he. We talk a lot, and I try and help him as much as I can.
Morgan Sullivan.
But we kind of got put in a position where we had to find somebody, and so you take what you can get at that point.
And that's not the thing is, in the current setup where almost everyone that's decent makes the playoffs, it's a good week 1 game for West Liberty-Salem. What's the worst that can happen? They're not going to get blown out. Even if it doesn't go well and they lose by 3 touchdowns, it changes absolutely nothing for their season. Yeah. They go on, they have a good opponent, and they play the rest of their season. Now, you guys didn't do a ton of jockeying around and you're out of conference during your time. You basically played.
No, I never wanted to. With football, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Now, as a fan and even as a coach, because at Bellefonte we did a fair amount of it, and I was pretty heavily involved with who we played. I liked, and you want to have a rival or two, like we have Sydney at Bellefonte, but I liked picking a different team every 2 years. In my time, we played Coldwater, we played Bishop Watterson, we played Troy, we played Marysville, we played Wapakoneta. I think that's good for fans. I think it's good for communities. But I get, as an athletic director, you're constantly worried about what if it doesn't work? What if I find myself a year and a half out and I have an opening? Because that's your worst nightmare.
It is, and like I said, it all boils back to the money, because that sets the tone for what you can do the year after, or the next years. Because
it's that big a part of your budget is football gates.
Yes.
What does a good football season bring in? Can you say, like, I mean, 20 grand, 30 grand
for West Liberty, Salem? It would be, if you can get 20 to 25,000,
and that's profit. Like you're clearing that.
Yeah, you're clearing that.
And that you're saying that money is earmarked for a bunch of the things you're going to do in your budget
for all the other sports, because all the other sports don't get the fan base that football does.
Now basketball is making basketball is making some money.
Boys and girls basketball help.
Girls even comes out as a profit.
It'll make a profit, but not a ton.
Do you lose in everything else?
Yeah.
Can wrestling become profitable if you do, if you have a good tournament, or is it just too expensive to pay?
It's too expensive.
Well, you're paying those tournament registration fees, which are $300-400.
You have to pay all your officials, and when you consider officials, uniforms, just even the operating expenses, and I'm sure every school is different as far as what the athletic department receives from the general fund of the school district. And we did, my athletic department did receive some money, but some schools are self-floating. They only depend on, or they can only count on the money that they get in from the gates. And some of those schools are even in the OHC.
Well, Graham in particular, I know at CBC, they have been razor thin tight forever. It feels like they've been trying to pass a levy there for like a decade.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea why they can't get that thing passed. Facilities, I would say as good as West Liberty's been over that time period, not really out front in facilities. What are your thoughts on that? That's how I view it from a distance. Like, you don't have turf. Quite a few other people are getting turf. Is there talk of getting turf? Was there talk of getting turf?
Well, I mean, there's always that talk, but I always felt like it was unrealistic, and I never pursued it. I obviously am an outdoors guy. That was probably the favorite part of my job, is going outside and getting fields or getting stadiums ready, keeping them up, keeping them presentable. The biggest thing for us is we still don't have outdoor restrooms.
Yeah.
Or a locker room outside.
So people are still, you're doing porta johns, and then people are walking to the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was when I played. It was that way. Now the field house project.
Yep.
That feels like it's taken a while. Is that fair?
It is. You asked about highlights, and that was a big highlight of mine, was when we were able to announce that we were kicking that project off. Now,
what year was that?
18,
19?
2018. It was so we had the shooting, and then that was 17, and then we announced that kind of, unfortunately, that led to this event of kicking off. We wanted to find some project to pour, some financial funds that were donated, but turn that into a positive twist. And so that we kicked that off in the spring of 18.
And then COVID kind of jammed it up. Is that
Well,
It feel-
COVID and funding, but COVID
Costs went
definitely
way up.
Costs went way up.
Where do they stand right now? Do you know?
I'm still involved in it, and we've been meeting with contractors, and the school board's gotten involved with it, which is a huge help because at the point in time when we kicked it off, it was just strictly athletic boosters, and as costs with COVID, that doubled the price. I mean, I can remember thinking when we first started thinking about it, it was going to be a $200,000 or $300,000 building. And that's unheard of now. I mean, you can't even
Probably
build
a $2
house
million
for that.
building, isn't it?
Yeah. So now it is. Now it is, and you just can't. You can't pull that off with a group of with an athletic.
Now
club.
you have a fair amount of local connections. I would say you're on the higher end of commercial construction, commercial excavators. So like you have a little bit of a built-in advantage maybe. And I know those people aren't looking to give away things, but I would say you have a little bit of a home field advantage. Maybe not. But do you feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel on that thing?
I do now. Yes, I do now.
Like
now that the school's gotten involved. So
2 years, 3 years?
No, I feel like there'll be a field house within the next 16 months.
Okay. So this is real now.
Yeah.
And then that will be, tell me, like, kind of at I'm bad at directions, the east side of the stadium? Like,
no, the north side.
The north side.
Where the old baseball field sat.
Oh, okay.
So when we...
The old baseball field. You guys have a new baseball field?
Rick, where have you been?
Well, I've been at Bell Fountain.
So, yeah, that was another...
West Liberty doesn't play there anymore.
No,
okay.
We've got a new field.
Okay.
So that was something I enjoyed.
Congrats
doing.
on the new field.
Thank you. If we could only charge to get into the field.
Yeah. I don't know that anybody's charging to get into high school baseball.
No.
I don't know if it'd be as profitable as you think it would.
No.
So there's going to be...
But isn't that funny, though? You have baseball and softball. People pay to get into high school athletic events all year long. And then baseball and softball, who still have the same expenses, same operating expenses than any other sport, and you just walk right into it.
Yeah, I mean, except tournament time, the Ohio high school make sure they get theirs. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is a lot of baseball fields are hard to rope off.
They don't have fences.
Yeah, so that would be the first thing. Plus, the attendance isn't great. So what will all be in that field house? What are we looking at?
There's a big multi-purpose room, so it'll have. It's not really set up to be a competition gym. It's more of a practice. Several basketball courts, so you can have 2 or 3 practices going on at once. You could also have baseball practice in there. There's a golf simulator in there, so you could. I mean, they're trying to make the main multi-purpose room so that every sport can practice in there at every season.
Will there be turf? Generally a lot of them will have a little like mini turf field like football would warm up in and stuff.
No, it's a
hard floor.
It's a hard floor.
So wrestling will have no home out there?
I can't answer that. I think the plan is for wrestling to be able to overtake the whole upper deck of the
way it was when I was a kid.
The way it was. So because the weight room's part of there's a separate weight room in the new building.
So those now, and I have not been at West Liberty for years. So when I was there, when I came back from when I was in high school, wrestling practice was the whole deck, except the ends were those janky weight rooms, little cages that just tiny.
Yeah.
And when
weightlifting wasn't wasn't big then.
Correct. And then in the off season for wrestling, we would pull weights out into the kind of common area, and we could power clean and stuff there. But then when I come back from Ohio State and I coach middle school there, we are reduced down to like a third of that area because West Liberty had gotten a lot of weight equipment. Is that still how it is today? Like, is that the current setup?
Yeah.
The weight room's decent size. Not that it's great, but
it's in all honesty, it's terrible.
But better than it was in the 90s. It's no longer on the ends, but it's
the weight room.
The weight room.
The weight room is half of the upper deck.
The wrestling room is woefully too small.
Oh, that's what I thought you were talking about.
Yeah,
it's awful.
If
you had maybe 5 or 6 wrestlers, you're okay. But the wrestling team has been growing, and plus you have your middle schoolers.
And yeah, you got girls. I mean, they don't have a lot,
Girls,
but they want to get more.
The Pee Wee program is always
Oh,
flourishing.
I never thought about Pee Wee up there.
Yeah, it's very inadequate.
The Pee Wee wrestles in that little area.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Now this year they moved down into the elementary cafeteria, and they have to roll mats out every night. Yeah, it's bad.
So the field house will fix that. That's good news.
And then it'll also create outdoor restrooms and locker rooms.
And the gymnasium is, I mean, kind of is what it's always been. You don't see that changing anytime soon.
Inside the school?
Yeah, the main gym.
No, it's good. Yeah, that's good.
And you think West Liberty School, I mean, we're now, how many years? 35 years old. I mean, is it foreseeable future? That's the school. There's not this is about the time where people start saying we need a new school. That's not a.
No, I think we're good.
You know, we see a ton of schools being built, and people ask that about Bell Fountain High School. We've gotten new schools with the smaller ones, but I don't see Bell Fountain High School. I think it stays around for a long time. It's weird how some schools, like, you don't really know why, but they have stability. And I know I talked to Keith Krieger years ago when I was interviewing him for a project I had to do, and he said that there was zero plan to, and Bell Fountain High School's 60, 70 years old by now.
I think you could say there's zero plan for West Liberty-Salem.
Now, you've grown to love the 68 location. I mean, you go back far enough where, you know, when the high school was in town and you went
I wouldn't
to school.
say I love it. I think it's a bad location, but it is what it is.
It's at least tamed down. That was a hot button topic in the late 80s and the early 90s. That move out to, I'm sure most people that weren't around wouldn't realize that, but that move. Now, someone told me that West Liberty, someone is finally tearing down the West Liberty Elementary in town.
Yeah.
Now, what will go there? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do.
Now, you're generally involved in these things. You're heavy in the Lions Club. You're a regular attendee of the Liberty Gathering Place.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, you don't go there anymore.
No.
Now, is Liberty Gathering Place still kind of a thing?
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean but it kind of went through some changes. I worked there many years ago.
It's a good place to go, and you can actually go there and have an alcohol.
How has that gone? I haven't heard much about it.
I think it's gone great.
Is anybody getting just rip roaring and really menacing the streets?
No.
I'd like to see a little more of that. Do you think it's been the financial windfall that
I don't think
that guys like you were advertising on Facebook?
I don't think
I missed that.
I think you have to there's a way to do it, and you have to do it tastefully, and you ease in. I mean, if you want to go to the gathering place and have your dinner and get a glass of wine or just get a beer, you can do it now.
Is there any talk of something coming in, like taking advantage of
there's people that have ideas, yeah, but I think it's a process. I think it's going to take time.
How does that work? Like, did they put in like?
Are we
limits?
talking about athletics here?
No, I'm just talking about the town. I mean, our listeners are diverse. They want to go down to West Liberty and visit.
Well, they should.
They now, like, did they put in safeguards? Because I really don't know much about it. Like, did they prevent someone from putting in a big sports bar, like if they wanted to, or
no? The only thing that's prevented right now is hard liquor, because that didn't pass.
Okay.
The beer and wine pass, but you gotta leave your tequila at home.
Do any other businesses any other businesses got liquor license besides the gathering place?
No.
Does Shell sell alcohol?
Nope, they cannot. The way the levy passed was that it was it has to be an eating establishment.
Okay, so it's not carry out.
Nope.
Thoman's isn't going to be selling.
Stand cannot sell any alcohol.
Well, that's
and again, sometime down the road they might put it on the ballot where that can change.
Sounds like you got something drawn up.
No, I don't. I think it's fine the way it is. But
now, like the Pyatt Castles can now sell. I know they're like hosting things,
yes,
right?
But that didn't have. They're outside of village.
Oh, they always could.
That didn't. No, they couldn't always. They had to go and they had to solicit all the township. They went door to door getting signatures in Monroe Township, so they had to pass that on their own.
Now, has all the drama kind of from the whole thing settled down? Like people that were against
Yeah.
it have kind of let it go
Yes.
because they realized that
And I hope
life
they,
didn't end.
I hope they've seen that it's been done right, and there's not an uproar and crime, and you can have that and still have a great downtown, and everything can work.
Now, we do have a fight scheduled here in a few minutes at the Craft Emporium. We're going to be airing a classic episode of Chavez Taylor. I don't know if you remember that, but if anyone's listening and woke up today thinking, man, it's been a long time since I saw Chavez Taylor, it is going to be on here soon. I think we've got a few people here chomping at the bit. The popcorn's popping.
I smell it.
I am curious. So you quit in 2021. You would have been 40 years old, if maybe a little more. What did make you say, it's time to give it up?
My business was taken off. I lost my mom through cancer. I realized that life is short. I was very unhappy. I didn't like doing the job anymore. Parents made it tough.
Just complaining about everything.
And the drama at ball games with visiting fans, purple and gold.
Yeah, they've been doing that for decades.
Yeah, and it just was. I would just go home so mad, and I was like, it's not fun anymore. And I was just tired of going to a job that I wasn't having any fun anymore. And I can remember I made a list on my phone of pros and cons, and it was very obvious that it was time.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that because a lot of people are, it's easier now that you're out, and I've dealt with that in my teaching career and coaching, that the ugly side of sports in particular, but even school in general, but sports, how people allow sports to go from this great thing that we love and ruin it by adding this negativity.
They ruin it.
And I don't know. I don't have any answers, and I've got a lot of opinions on about everything. I don't know what the answer is, because the problem is so many people approach sports the wrong way, that sports are an avenue to experience something. And I always tell my guys that it was a shared experience that we'd get to do together, and we'd build relationships and memories. And obviously we always want to win, but it would be something that would add meaning to our life. And so many people on the outside don't view it that way. They view it as an avenue to create a Facebook profile where I can show you what my son or daughter's doing, and I add to that with Garage Sports, so I'm aware of the hypocrisy of that. But where my son's gonna, what Division III school my son or daughter is going to go to, and they just lose sight of what's important, and can be downright nasty about it.
And that's the sad part about it. I mean, the high school sports is a great thing, but it can turn into such a cancerous thing too, because and it gets worse every year. I mean, the downslide is awful.
And as a public school employee, you have to take some of those darts. You can't at Logan Lawn and Landscaping, if someone doesn't has issue with you, you can kind of tell them where to go.
Yeah.
If you're okay losing the dollar. Where at West Liberty-Salem School Athletic Director, you got to sit and take it,
right?
Because you don't really want the alternative, which is major scandal and drama. Yeah. It's I think that education,
that would sum it up. I was tired of playing the game.
Yeah. And education is at a crossroads in that regard, not just sports, but where public school employees, and it is a decent living. Now, being a coach isn't, but being a teacher and all that goes with it, it's a decent living with good hours, and there's lots of great things, but you become a target. And especially with the rise of social media, at any time they can put your name on there and say about anything they want about you, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Well, let's just say I would not be sitting here talking to you if I had that position.
Right. Well, I do appreciate you coming on. I know you had no real reason to. Some people say yes because they feel like they have to. We do get more views than you think. You're probably sitting here thinking, who's listening? Ironically, we get about 1,000 views an episode, which I don't know how long they listen, even though Facebook does try to tell us. We have 8 viewers right now, Jake, so that's actually kind of a high point for us. I think you probably have some fans. I guarantee Andy Smith is listening as we speak. But I was.
Oh, I've even got some Logan Lawn employees on there.
Well, yeah. Hey, and there you go. And Logan Lawn has really, we didn't touch on that enough. It's really exploded. I drove by. I don't drive down West Liberty. We went to Knoxville the last few days, and I came by your place yesterday, and you either have 13 employees or you have 13 big pickup trucks. I don't know which one it is.
I have 12, and there's 10 of them that are worth it good.
Okay, well, those 2, if we can get them straight.
Yeah.
How many yards are you doing nowadays? Because I know back in the day, I think the number was like 40.
Yeah, we're up over 200 now.
Oh, good God! I had no idea.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. It's humbling. It's awesome, but and it's hard, but I'm pretty happy.
When we drove by that little cemetery that's across from just south of town, South Union, is that what it's called?
North of town.
North of town. I'm sorry. I told my daughter and son, I said, I used to mow that cemetery.
Yep.
Do you still mow that one?
No, we don't.
Oh, you
Not
lost
anymore.
that bid, huh?
Yeah.
You lost me and you lost that bid.
Yeah.
I didn't make sure that the trailer was hitched, and I ran up on it and drove the lip of that trailer
Well, it
right.
wasn't hitched.
It was not.
The latch was not clipped back.
I blame Nick Hostetler. I think that Nick Hostetler came out there and messed with that. But all right, Jake. Well, I
Thanks,
appreciate
Jay.
it. Hopefully you stick around here. We got
I will.
Chavez Taylor, and it'll start filling up in here. Next Thursday, we're supposed to talk to Mark Brunswick, a longtime baseball coach, now current athletic director at Sidney Lehman. We'll see if Bruns follows through. If he's listening, Bruns, we'll see you next Thursday. All right, everybody. Have a good one.